CoreLogic just came out with a study saying that home prices in a lot of the areas in the United States should expect home price declines over the next 12 months. In Florida alone, we're seeing an explosion in inventory and prices are dropping fast. In this video, I interview Philip Simonetta. He is one of Sachs Realty's preferred brokerages in the state of Florida, and he says if you're interested in buying in the Florida housing market, you may want to wait as prices are dropping fast and inventory is exploding in areas like Cape Coral by more than 1,000%. I hope you enjoy the show. Phil, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. You know, a lot of people talk about Florida housing market, and I mean, they're YouTubers. I'm not saying it's bad. We're YouTubers also. But a lot of people are, stating things about the Florida housing market. So I figured if I need to get the information straight, I have to go to who I know and trust as a real estate broker, somebody that's actually transacting day to day in Florida. So I'm excited to kind of dive in today. And Phil, before we get started, CoreLogic, and obviously you've heard of them, they're a financial analytics company. And in their last market risk indicator, they stated that there was a very high chance, they actually said above 70% probability of home price cuts in this coming year. You and I have been saying that forever. We knew it was coming, but now it's starting to get its way into headline news. But besides areas that could take massive hits in states like Georgia, Washington, and South Carolina, Florida seems to be like right front and center. So what are your thoughts, Phil? Kind of bring us up to date.
Yeah, I tell you, in the last 2 to 4 weeks, I've seen a complete change in everything that we're doing. I mean, just the traffic and the volume. The buyers are slowing up. The buyers are still there. They're just like, we're not buying right now. We're waiting. They're looking at properties. They're seeing all the inventory come on. The sellers, reality hasn't hit yet. They're still thinking, hey, my neighbor sold the house a year ago for this much money, and now my house is worth this much money. So reality hasn't set in. The sellers are finally dropping a little bit, 10 grand, 5 grand, 8 grand, but it's still not enough to entice the buyer. And they're still sticking to that, I can still get more money. I can still get more money. The other thing, I just showed a couple properties in Orange Park up here outside of, like, towards Jacksonville here. And the properties, they're asking top dollar. However, the places need 50, 60 grand worth of work. They're run down. Things are busted. Things aren't looking good. It needs to be painted. It's like, and you can see when you're showing the properties, the people aren't living to a high standard. Beds are on the floor, things like that. It's really, what I'm seeing is the sellers are kind of like realizing I got to get out of here and get the money while I can and do something.
These are occupied homes?
These are occupied homes. The last two that I showed up here. And the buyer in that situation, well qualified, good to go, just not willing to overpay. And we're just looking for the right houses, and that's just a scenario where we're seeing a lot of things that it's just, these houses are 40 to 50 grand overpriced. I mean, just looking at it, knowing it, what it needs, the work. I mean, there's no doubt about it. What I see coming with this here, I always look at the market stats. The stats don't lie, right? I always say the numbers don't lie, people do. I see a massive sell-off coming in certain areas, not all areas. And I'll give you an example. For example, in Cape Coral's in Southwest Florida. One of the luxuries I have is I work throughout the state. Most of your agents are just in an area or a city. I have, agents throughout the state. I'm in 3 different MLSs. I handle Naples to Tampa, over to Jacksonville, all the way down to Miami, the Keys. So I'm able to see what's going on in different areas and not be just focused in on that one. So I'm going to give you an example. Okay. I have clients in Cape Coral. I've sold the house for a little while ago. Cape Coral, the inventory is up 1,000% over the last 3 years. So what we have is in Cape Coral, you have over 830 properties on the market where you had about 79 or 80 before.
So just to lay down the foundation, tell us about the desirability of Cape Coral. Is this an area that people want to move to? I mean, tell us like why what is Cape Coral? Is it imploding because, it was overrated and people are realizing that it's not a great place to live? Or is it that, give us some foundation on Cape Coral.
Cape Coral's a good area. It's a solid area. It's a little bit north of Naples, south of like Punta Gorda, in that area on the southwest, area. It's not close to a beach. I mean, you have to drive to go to the beach, things like that, but it's a solid area. However, Cape Coral, the reason I'm looking at that area at this point, Cape Coral dropped 60% in between 2008 and 12. So you bought a $400,000 house and in 2008, okay? And by 2012, it's worth $175,000, $160,000. So Cape Coral was one of the first cities to get hit the hardest back then. So that's why Cape Coral is one of my focus points, because I'm looking to see what Cape Coral's doing. Back in '08, it was like Las Vegas, San Diego. They were the first ones to go, right? But in Florida, Cape Coral was one of the first ones to drop. Okay, it's pretty interesting. Now, that's Cape Coral. Now, we have an example. Let's use Windermere as an example. Windermere is a suburb of Orlando. It's where Tiger Woods lives. His gated community's there. I have a client that I'm working with, actually, that that saw me on one of your shows. He actually called me, was working with other agents, but he saw the information on what we did, and now I'm working with them. We're looking at properties in Windermere. Now, Windermere, prices aren't coming down. It's an elite community. It's just like the beach in Fort Lauderdale. You have condos on the beach. Condos in Fort Lauderdale are getting hit.
But Windermere's where the rich live.
Yeah, it's a wealthy area.
Yeah,
absolutely.
so we can't really. I mean, they're not there. The way I look at it, Phil, is Florida, and this is sort of like. And I had this conversation a little off topic with someone who moved from Puerto Rico. And in fact, he's in the mortgage business. I'm getting ready to podcast with him. But, he described Puerto Rico like this. He's like, I'm young. I had to get the hell out of Puerto Rico, he said, because I couldn't make any money there. People go to certain areas as a refuge that have more than like 98% of the population. So, I think I think a Windermere is like that's its own little microcosm.
The reason I compare it is I want people understand, if they're looking to be in certain areas, don't expect a 20, 30% drop. Now, in your average area, I'm expecting a 20 to 30, maybe 40% drop, maybe more. I mean, this went down 60% over the last 4 years from 8 to 12. Now, one of the things you got to look at, okay, it all comes down to the inventory statistics. The first thing you're going to look at is what's happening to the inventory. Now, example, Cape Coral. You have 830 some listings right now. Okay. The average baseline, okay, saying 3 years ago there was 80 listings 3 years ago. That's not really fair to say that, because that's not the baseline. Just, it was low inventory, right? Your baseline inventory over the last few years is about 300, 350 houses on the market. So even under that number, if you don't look at the low point, you're still 2.5 times, 2.25 times what your average inventory is. Houses are sitting on the market.
During the last 4 years, Florida has had more domestic migration to your state. I mean, I think it was one of the hottest in the country, and people flocking there. I mean, for obvious reasons, lots of water, right? I mean, on both sides of the state. You have lots of sunshine. It gets hot there in the summertime, but I mean, overall, you have palm trees, a beautiful place to be. So if you're on lockdown, you know, you're working remotely. I mean, hey, if I'm going to pick a spot to be, I want to be underneath a palm tree. Yeah. The problem is that caused your market to go completely parabolic.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing now with this explosion of inventory, kind of break that down. Is that because people are moving out of the state? I mean, I hear people are beating feet from Florida, like, and before you answer that, you don't have any jobs. Yeah. I mean, with what I was just referencing, the nice thing about Florida is it's like a resort place. You mentioned Windermere, where people have tons of money. Man, they're going to retire. They're Tiger Woods. I mean, you can't even compare, right?
Yeah, no,
I mean, it's like that's the elite. But so they're not worried about jobs. They're worried about people that can cut their lawn and polish their landscaping and power wash their houses and stuff like that. But you have basically a hospitality industry, a vacation resort hospitality industry, which doesn't pay a lot of money. So there's a big disparity, in income. So all these people move to Florida, it blows it up. There's no surprise, going to crash big time. Mm-hmm. But why are people moving out? Is it affordability or is it policy?
I think what's happening is the affordability is forcing a certain segment out. However, when you talk about jobs, there's a lot of medical moving into Florida. There's a lot of aging population in Florida. You have a lot of nurses. You have a lot of medical facilities. You have a lot of clinics coming in, not only because there's no corporate tax, there's no state corporate tax in Florida. There's no state income tax in Florida. So you have a lot of these companies coming to Florida, bringing their people to Florida. Who's leaving Florida are your service workers, are your service industry workers that can't afford. You have 2, 3, 4 people renting a house together, renting rooms that are working in restaurants, that are working in nightclubs. But the thing is, you need them as well, because the people who are here want to go out and have a good time. They want to go out and eat. They want to go. So you need that segment of the population as well. So you have 2 extremes. There's very few, people in Florida that are just average income. You have your people who are in the restaurant service and service industries, and you have your more affluent, a lot of your online working, a lot of your medical field, a lot of your service business type jobs in Florida. Now, again, a lot of construction going on, a lot of road work being done. There are blue collar jobs as well. The problem is those blue collar jobs aren't paying enough for where your rents are. Now, what's happening is the rents have already been dropping off. We just did a review with one of my clients that I worked with through you, who purchased a house to rent cash as an investment. The rents were about $2,100 a month. She had her management fees and everything, and she was making about 4 or 5% on her money. However, the rents to re-rent it was about $1,850 to $1,900 now. They dropped. The taxes went up. She would have been making about 1.5% after her management fees. So we listed it, we sold it in 2.5 weeks, and we closed it a couple weeks ago. Got her out of it. Took her money, reinvested it into. I'm not sure where she reinvested it, but she could have took it into short-term bonds at 4 or 5%. She could have made the same money, if not a little more, than having the risk of a rental, right? So a lot of these renters, it's opening up for them a little bit, saving $200-$300 a month. However, your electric bill just went up that much because you're running the AC. Electric just went up. Living costs are going up as well. So one of the things when it comes to the rental market, it's starting to loosen. Now, we talked before. I also ran a couple of those studies. Like I took a few cities. I took Naples, Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and Jacksonville. Okay. And I ran a little computation for if you buy a house or rent a house, same property. Now, depending on where you are, the worst area was like Miami, Fort Lauderdale. If you rent a property, okay, you put your first, your last security, and you rent it. You're paying X, right? If you buy the property, I figured if you put 5% down, okay, you get a mortgage at today's mortgage rate, and you pay your taxes, your insurance, all your fees, all your costs. It's costing you in Miami and Fort Lauderdale about maybe $1,250 to about $1,750 a month less to rent the same house you would buy. Now in Jacksonville, it was the lowest. It was about $750 difference to rent it, cheaper than buying it. And throughout the state, it was between those areas, between $1,750.
So on the very low end, you're over $8,000, $9,000. You're saving a year to rent the same exact house that you would buy.
Yeah, and that's just simple computations. You take the average rate, you take the average rent, you do the calculation, you add the HOA. If there's an HOA, you add the taxes, you add the insurance, and the numbers don't lie, man.
And you don't have to fix it. As a renter, you're not fixing anything. You don't have to worry about the roof leaking, the heating and air system going up. That's
Yeah.
Why would you buy?
Yeah.
That's sad though.
I'm telling you, it's mind blowing. And what has to happen? Either rates have to come down so that mortgage payment equals, right, or your taxes or your insurance, which that's not happening, right? Or you have to lower the price of the house. Who's going to pay $750 to $1,750 a month more to buy when they could just rent it for a year and wait for the market to come down?
What about the rental side? I just want to ask for a minute. When you're looking at, are there a lot of rentals available?
Yeah, there's rentals all over the place.
And who owns them? Is it corporate landlords or are they mostly mom and pops? I mean,
now I would say it's about maybe 70-30 corporate. A lot.
70% of the rentals are corporate owned.
I would say about that. The ones that I looked at, I would say about 70%. And what happens is, I'll give you an example. We were talking about Cape Coral. Okay, I sent you guys over a property that I sold there. It's labeled that I sold it there. So there's a property here that I sold in Cape Coral. I closed this March 9th in 22. Let me explain what this property was. Single family home. Gentleman lived in New Jersey. Okay, he wanted to sell the property because the market was up and he wanted to use the money for other investments. Okay, so we listed the property February 26, 22. The contract date was March 1st, 22. On the market a few days. I had a bidding war between a hedge fund and a buyer. The hedge fund, I actually acted as a transaction broker, both sides of this deal. They were going back and forth. We had it listed at $349,900. Okay, it sold at $363,000. That's what the final number was after the bidding war with the hedge fund. Okay, now the hedge fund bought this property. They had a 7-day inspection period. Todd, they never even came to look at it. Never even came to look at it. Never came and did the inspection. The property needed a well pump. It needed to be painted. It needed some work. Never questioned it. I asked them, do you want to order the inspection? Do you want to have this done? Nope, they just didn't even do it. They closed the deal, bought it cash. The tenants moved out, and they just took the property. Now, to rent this property out today and make money, they're losing money like crazy. There's no way they're making that. The rent doesn't support that. This happened over and over and over through that period of time. These hedge funds were unloading, buying 10, 15 houses at a time, maybe more. I remember the girl I talked to who was handling this was working on about 65 cases at that time that they were contracts that they were doing. Same situation.
Phil, they're not playing with other people. They're not playing with their own money.
No, that's other. Yeah, exactly. That's the craziest
they don't care.
Thing.
A lot of these corporate buyer programs are fractional ownership, where 150 people buy into the house. They take the price of what they purchase it, they resell it in a lot of cases, or give the offering price to their investors at a higher price. They take that money, stick it in their pockets, I guess, whatever, and then they build in their own management company where they charge an 8 or 10% management fee, so they get that. And whether or not they make a profit or not, that's the risk of the investor. So with 70%, so here's what's interesting. I guess this is an interesting question for you. If 70% of the rental market is owned by corporate America and they're losing money every single month, are we going to see this inventory hit the market?
That's the reason I'm talking about this. I believe so. I believe it's going to hit all at once because they could take that same money and short-term invest it and make more money.
Right, because they're going to just say, "Hey, look, sorry guys, you invested in something and you lost your money." But at the same point in time, it doesn't look good because we're seeing now a lot of these REITs, the people are asking for their money back. They want out of the REITs, and they're actually putting, some of these REITs are putting stops on the ability for. Yeah, they just did it.
I just saw it. Yeah.
So now we're looking at, okay, they're going to dump these properties. So you're projecting that in Florida and in a lot of these markets that you just listed, which are very popular markets, not just for travel and destination, but for people to live. You think we're in for a pretty big haircut in Florida?
I'm telling you, I'm saying between 20 and 40% could go higher like last time. And the other thing too you got to think about is a lot of these properties are vacation rentals. People had investment properties. They turned them into vacation rentals. Then they got the loans, the DSCR loans, where it went off the income the property was producing. So if the property's worth $350, but it's producing income, now it's worth $550. They took a refinance, took a loan out, bought another property to do the same thing with. A lot of that's going on. Now, Airbnb in some of these areas is down 40, 50, 60%. They're not making enough money to pay for the property. You got those properties coming. You got all the deals canceling, deals that aren't closing. That's a big factor right now.
I hope you're enjoying the show with Phil. I quickly want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by SachsRealty.com. And if you're in the market looking to buy, sell, or rent, and you're in Maryland, we hope we're your number one choice. And if you're anywhere else in the country, we have an amazing broker network on our website, just like Phil, that are ready to serve your real estate needs. Simply go to SachsRealty.com, scroll down to the map of the United States, click on your state and the city of interest, and here's where you'll find our broker network. Now, this network is relatively new for us at Sachs Realty, and if you're not finding somebody in your city, feel free to reach out to me directly. Here's my email address. I'd be happy to talk with you and pair you up with a rock star agent in your town. Now let's get back to the show. You're seeing an inventory explosion in Florida in a lot of markets. You're saying Cape Coral, 1,000% inventory increase. And what period of time is that? Over like the last 30 days?
That I would say that was over about the last 90 days. It shot up.
Okay. So 90 days of inventory that's hitting the market. You have more inventory than you've had in years. And you still have a lot of corporate buyers out there that can pay cash. Why aren't they absorbing this inventory yet?
The price is too much. The price is too high. They know it. They already overpaid.
They know it. They're just standing on the sidelines with their bloodthirsting, right, to pounce in and kind of arbitrage their costs where they overspent. Right. Now they know it's going to happen and take advantage. All right, so let's talk about what you were going with, because I know the last time we spoke, you were saying that contracts are being canceled. So we get a buyer, and we've seen this too. And one of my agents, in fact, in the last sales meeting said, I've had a situation where I've seen contract cancellations for basically no reason at all. We just decided we're not going to buy the house anymore. And one of the things that he had said, I said, like, why do you think that is? Why are we seeing this influx? And he had said that, he thought because it was more inventory popping on the market. So you're under contract for something, and all of a sudden you're waiting for your due diligence period or whatever. You're going through your inspections. And now all of a sudden you see 4 more houses come on the market that are better than the one that you like, better than the one that you just went under contract on, and the same price or less. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I can't buy 2 houses. I'm going to dump this one and make a play on that one. And he thought that maybe that had something to do with it. So talk about the contract cancellations that you're seeing.
Yeah, cancellations are up. I mean, like exponentially. And what's happening is people are realizing tax costs. People are realizing insurance costs. I just had a deal on a 1995 build in Orlando. This is in Kissimmee, right outside of Orlando, close to Disney. 1995 build. The roof was about 13 years old, still in good shape. Everything was okay. Had about 8 years left on it. It was a nice roof. Everything was fine. The insurance, $13,000 a year because of the roof. And get this, hurricane. You're responsible for the first 5% of the damage. So a roof comes in, goes through. You're paying that much a year, and you're responsible for the first 5% of your damage, which is a lot of money, man. If something comes through,
that's cost prohibitive.
Cancel the deal. We canceled the deal.
Give us an idea. That $12,000 a year. All right, so $12,000 a year for the insurance, $1,000 a month. What was it 2 years ago?
Probably about 68 to 7,000.
So almost doubled in 2 years.
Yep, about that. So now that's an example. That's one reason why people would cancel, right? Not expecting that. Something I'm doing now is getting insurance quotes before we put offers.
Maybe they should be advertising that with the house. If you buy this house, it's going to cost you $1,000 a month in insurance. Because if I were to buy, I mean, why wouldn't real estate agents warn them of this prior to going in? I mean, they're getting them to buy the house or put the house under contract. The sellers are taking it off the market. Now all of a sudden they find out they're going to, insurance isn't what they thought it was going to be. Are the agents taking any responsibility for this?
I tell you, I never would have thought to do that, because insurance, like now after this example, I mean, I never got an insurance quote. I get the mortgage rate. I get the mortgage all set up. I find out what their costs are going to be. I figure out the HOA, the taxes, what the tax on the purchase price is going to be, figure out all the calculations.
Because it's going up.
But yeah, exactly. But insurance to double, like now every buyer, I'm getting an insurance quote, because it was something that I just, with everything going on, that you just now it's something, it's in my radar. I have to see this.
So give us an example of that house, that the $1,000 a month insurance. What was the purchase price?
Purchase price was $359.
Okay, so let's take a $359. Do you remember what it was assessed for, as far as the tax assessment prior to it being sold?
I don't remember. Okay. It's been a little while since I looked at it.
Yeah, because a lot of times, just so we can talk about it for the viewers that are listening, because a lot of first-time buyers don't really understand this. But let's say you're looking at a house that costs $350,000 to buy. Yeah. If you look at the tax assessment, and the assessed value is based on some type of sale that was done 10 years ago, and maybe that house that's selling for $350 was sold for $170 10 years ago. That buyer 10 years ago is having a phased-in tax assessment because they're probably protected by a homestead tax credit in it, as their primary residence. What a lot of people don't realize is now what happens, you buy it at $350. Guess what? You're not assessed a phased-in value from 10 years ago as your primary residence that was protected from the homestead tax credit. The state, and all states are doing this, that the state says, whoa, the house is worth $350. You just bought it at $350. We are reassessing that house for the purchase price. Your tax bill is going to go up significantly. It's not going to be the same as the sellers. So guys, you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at it, because a lot of times when you have you're loving the fact that you're moving forward, buying the house, everything's going well. Now you realize the tax bill that you saw online is wrong, is not your tax bill. Now you see, like Phil said, you're $1,000 a month on a $350,000 house.
It's
Think
crazy.
about that.
And you have to pay 5% of you got a 5% damage on a hurricane destruction. So what are you paying for insurance for? You're going to come out of pocket with another 5, 10, 15 grand if there's damage from a hurricane on top of paying the insurance. It's insanity. And the thing is, they give you a waiver. Like if you don't want to pay the 5%, it probably would have been like 18 grand a year. It's like they'll give you a way to do that. It would have been that much more expensive. So one of the things that I'm looking at, like I said, was the inventory. The inventory numbers are everything. It's going to show you what area is going to come down first, when it's going to start happening. I don't know when. It's hard to put a finger on when it's going to happen.
Do you think the buyers have control on how fast this happens?
If the buyers would just stop buying and hold off, it would happen right away. But there's still people buying. All
right. What percentage of that? And look, we're both, you and me, I mean, this is kind of like a self-fulfilled prophecy, right? Because a lot of people are like, why do you go on and talk about what you talk about with the issues of unaffordability and stuff like that? Because they're like, you sell houses. If you don't sell houses, you don't make any money. You're not making a commission check, right? And so when we look at it, it's like, Phil, you and I are kind of unique in the way that, our age, our, whatever. I mean, we're at the point now where we're like, we want actually, and not that we're at the point, we've been this way or we wouldn't, nothing changed who we are. We've always wanted to serve people and help them. You have a lot of agents out there that are still pushing the narrative that homes aren't overpriced. don't worry about the affordability. We're seeing now that people are getting up 40% of their income to enter into getting a home.
It's crazy.
And that's not even counting doing repairs and maintenance and costs. We're talking about 40% of your paycheck just to pay the mortgage payment, with the taxes and insurance that continue to go up every single year. So if you're not getting raises, that becomes even a higher cost or a higher burden. But why, you take an industry where real estate agents are commission-based. You got buyers out there that don't know. I mean, unless they're listening to you talking right now about the Florida market, they just want to buy a house. They want a place to lay down some roots. How long will the agents continue this pressure push before the buyers finally say, you know what, I'm not buying?
I got to tell you, man, it's happening as we speak. Perfect example. The people in Windermere that I'm showing the property to, the reason they called me was they saw me on your show. The agent they were talking with and their loan officer was telling them date the rate, buy the house. And it's a husband and wife. And it was just like, the wife wants to buy. She wants to buy. Let's get a house. Let's do it. The husband, he wants to buy. More logical, thinking about it, saying, you know what, we got to wait. The price, and I had this conversation with them. And the reason they contacted me, we just did a Zoom with Mark McDonald's, a lender I work with. He works with Loan Depot. And we just did a Zoom yesterday, and he explained everything to them. And the reason they came to us was because they were being fed that line, date the rate, buy the house now, felt like they didn't know what they were talking about. So it's happening. Educated buyers are looking at the facts, listening to what they're being told, and it doesn't add up. And they're looking for the right answer. The problem is they're not getting the right answers. They know in their gut something doesn't feel right. But the people they're talking to want to make a commission. They want to get a sale. They want to close a loan. They want to get some title work. They want to, what I mean?
It's an industry, and that's why a lot of people are saying
it's incentivized.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people are predicting that there's going to be a big consolidation in this space.
It's coming.
That we're going to start seeing a lot of changes in the industry because it sort of works against each other. It's like we're incentivized for higher prices. I mean, if you're just think about it. If you're commission based, do you want the prices to drop $150,000 on a house?
Yeah. Yeah.
Most agents would say no, right? They're doing so. It's like, at what point have we taken this industry and sort of made it, a fee-based industry that a lot of people now are saying that it's because of us, not us as in you and me, but the industry is feeding into why things cost the way they do. Yeah. But let's talk about a study. So Florida Atlantic University released the results of a study that they had concluded that the South Florida housing premiums are growing despite slowing rents. And this is kind of like what you were saying, that it makes more sense right now to rent than it does to buy. But according to the end of March data from the top 100 U.S. housing markets, the typical home in South Florida is 34.7% overvalued compared to its long-term pricing trend, up 15 basis points from the month before. And this kind of goes, Phil, along the narrative that you're saying that the sellers don't want to admit the fact that they're going to have to drop the price if they want to sell. And, they're not fixing things. They're living on the floors. These sellers can't afford anything. They certainly can't afford to even spend any money on their house to bring it up to snuff, to even ask or make it somewhat look like it's worth the money that they're asking. But it goes on to say, and this is quoted here, that this trend does concern me as prices are still going up in the Miami metropolitan area, but not in the rest of the measured areas in Florida. And this quote's from Ken Johnson, a PhD real estate economist with FAU's College of Business. Also, that price growth should be tepid considering the slowdown in rents and rising interest rates, but South Florida prices continue to rise despite market forces. So my question to you, Phil, as someone who's very familiar with the area, what the hell is going on in Miami specifically? I mean, like, why are prices going up? Is it foreign investors? I mean, what's up with Miami?
Miami's international money. It's people coming from everywhere to park their money and put it in and hold it there. All the new construction, it's international money coming into Miami. Fort Lauderdale's starting to get that. They're starting to come to Fort Lauderdale because Miami's very, very highly priced. Now,
are they living in the places, or are they just coming and buying them and,
usually second homes. Usually they come in from the other country to here for the winter time or something like that, or they rent it out. They'll Airbnb it during the season, and it'll come in off season, which is good because they're coming in the summertime.
So is Miami just that outrageous that it's only for the rich and it's kind of price protected?
Miami's always been that way. Brickell, the beach. Now what's happening is you're starting to see that expand out though. I mean, houses that were $300,000 are selling for $700,000-$800,000, and in communities that, I mean, it's just a matter of time. There's no way. There's high crime. There's some problems. The infrastructure's not there, honestly. So Miami's always been a strange beast. Fort Lauderdale, I'll give you a perfect example. Yeah, it's up 17%, right? Year over year, price-wise. However, the volume is down $500 million year over year. The volume's down. The prices are up. The sales are down. So it's like the people who are buying because they have the money, not because it's logic, not because it's a good deal. They want something. They have the money. They're probably scared of the inflation. They got to park the money somewhere. Where are they going to put it? Put it into real estate. Over time, it's going to go up. The next 5-10 years, it might not, but over time, it's going to go up. I just had a condo, Lauderdale by the Sea, put an offer in for some buyers. This was about a year ago, 8 months ago. Okay, a guy from Australia was bidding against us. The agent, it was an Australian oil company. Okay, they paid almost $300,000 more than the property was worth to get. It was a southeast corner unit of a building. Very rarely comes up. It was on the, I think, 11th or 12th floor. Beautiful building, Sea Ranch, Building C. The unit was 1121. Okay, 4900 North Ocean Boulevard. Why? Because he wanted it for his family, not because it was worth it. He had the money, he stroked the check, and he bought it. That is what is happening. There's enough people with enough money to want to be there. Fort Lauderdale, Miami, it's the 1% of the world, 2%, 3% of the world. That's their vacation. That's their playground. One of the reasons I moved to Florida, 20 years ago, when I came from Philly, was because I knew Florida, if I was going to start over and build something after my divorce and all that, I wanted to be somewhere where the money was. And Florida, I told myself, was always the playground for the wealthy, no matter where, if they're from the United States, if they're from another country. South Florida, specifically, is where you have everybody there. All your sports athletes, all your tycoons, your billionaires. Florida has the most billionaires in the country living. It's just a place where they come because there's tax advantages, because of the politics, because of the freedoms. We were locked down 10 days for COVID, 10 days. And then it was like, take your mask off, go do what you want to do. Examples of that. That was freedoms and opportunities for people. That's always going to be there. That's always going to be here. That's not going to change. That's one of the, what makes it so attractive to people.
Well, let's kind of end with some pointers for some buyers and sellers. And first, I want to talk about the buyers. So if you're looking to move to Florida or you're a renter right now, what advice do you have for the buyer?
If they're a renter coming,
if they're a renter in Florida, they want to buy a house. Yeah. They want a part of home ownership, lay down roots in a community, own the home, not have to worry about a landlord coming in and kicking them out because they can get a higher rent one day, or or not fixing things and keeping them in substandard living conditions, or whatever. What they want to buy a house, which is what you and I want people to. We want a home ownership. We want people to be able to afford a safe roof over their head, not have to uproot their family just because the landlord doesn't want to renew their lease. What do you tell these people now with what you just said, where you're saying that inventory is jacking up fast, prices are predicted to come down? What do they do?
Yeah. What I'm doing right now for the buyers, I'm not just looking on the MLS. 90% of your agents look on the MLS. That's all there is. You have to contact estate attorneys. You have to contact divorce lawyers. You have to find out, hey, look, I have a client wants to move to this area. Do you have any properties that you're putting up for sale? Any cases you're working on that need to sell a property? A lot of times these divorce situations, these estate, they'll list it with you. You can put the whole deal together without even putting it on the MLS. Save people 20, 30 grand sometimes because they just want to close the deal, right? There's some way you can get a good deal. The other thing is, you have investors, you have off-market property. You got to start going out there and talking to people as an agent, as a broker. Represent your buyers that way. This is where your value comes in as a buyer. With our changes, with the buyer broker agreements, why would I pay you so much money to do that? Because I'm going to go find a house for you that's not on the market. I'm going to go find a house for you. We're going to save 30, 40 grand. That's why I'm worth that much money. That's one of the approaches that's coming back. Right now, like most of your agents, they'll do a search on the MLS. Okay, let's go. Let me know if you like something. Or they'll let the buyer look on Zillow, find something, and then you go show it to them. See, you have to hunt these deals down. Okay, there's deals out there. There's people getting divorced every day. There's people passing away every day. There's estates that need to be settled. There's divorce cases that need to be settled. Bottom line, my advice to them is, okay, here's a search. Here's all the properties that are on the market. Now, you want to be in this zip code. I start contacting the attorneys. Hey, here's who I am. I own a real estate school. I own a real estate brokerage, blah, 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 blah. I have clients that are looking in this price range, qualified. Here's our information. Do you have any deals? No? Okay, great. I call the next divorce. But it does two things for me. It allows me to try to find these properties, and it also allows me to build relationships with these divorce attorneys and estate attorneys. Because when they do have a house come for sale, who are they going to call? I already have a buyer looking for one, right? So for agents, that's advice for them.
Buyers should be patient.
But patience is the key right now. And take your emotions out of it. Remove your emotions. You have to look at this as a transaction in this market. You can't let your emotions run you. And the hard thing is, real estate, it's an emotional business.
What do you tell the sellers? What do you tell the sellers that are sitting on the sideline saying, I have this 3.74% 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I'd like to sell, but do you tell them, hey, prices are coming down, you better get off your freaking, get off the couch and get this thing sold before you're losing a lot of your asset? Or do you tell them, hey, keep holding on to it?
Yep. No, I show them the same charts that I put up for you guys, like the ones that I sent you, and I show them. I say, here's where it was here. Here's where it is now. Here's where we are today. What do you like? I let them figure it out for themselves. I give them the information, and I don't try to sell it to them. I let them see the facts. So here's where we are. What do you think the next logical thing to do is? So if we're pricing here, here's all our competitors. Here's where they're priced. Here's where,
here's inventory. Here's prices coming down.
Yep.
Here's your house. This is where you're falling in. This is what you could have sold it for a year and a half ago, but you didn't. Now you're here, and here's where you think it's going to go. And so how long do you think it'd take to get back to where it is right now? So if you're looking at a house and you're saying, you said earlier that we may be looking at a 20, 40% price reduction from where we are now. You're looking at that house that's $350,000, right? You're looking at, even at 20%, you're looking at a $70,000 price drop, which is putting you in the 270 range, right? 270, 280. When do you think it would, I know you have no crystal ball, but how long do you think this is going to trend out in a downward trend?
The last time it happened, it took 4 years to get to the bottom, and then it started climbing back up. About 4 years, 3.5, 4 years.
So if the seller can hang on for another 4 or 5 years, maybe they'll be back to where they would like to be today. But that may mean that they need to put $150,000 in renovations in the house too, which is what I tell people. So what I say is this, and guys, and all of Phil's information is in the show notes. We really appreciate you watching, and you guys are educated. I mean, you're watching this video and our videos because of, you need to understand everything that's happening from everybody's perspective. You can't just look at headline news and say, hey, the sky's not going to fall, and then all of a sudden one day you wake up and you go, oh, wow, it fell. You have to, if you're looking to sell a house, here's what I want you to think about, okay? Today, you can probably still get a decent price for your house. Mm-hmm. It's still considered a seller's market. Depending on where you are in the country, it's changing rapidly, like Phil is explaining, in a lot of the Florida markets. Here's what you have to understand. You have to chart things out for yourself. We just came through a period of time where buyers were buying without home inspections. That is not normal, okay? And if you're asking anybody with any experience, they would say that's insanity. You should have a house checked out to know, not necessarily that you're going to even ask the seller to fix it, but what your costs are going to be moving forward. Because if you're a first-time buyer especially, they could cripple you to where you're financially broke and bankrupt because you can't afford to make the repairs to a house. Here's what I'm going to say if you're a seller. Take your home, assess the situation, and say, if I had became into a market here in the next 6 months, a year, where everybody wants home inspections and I would have to fix things or not sell my house, how much would that be, right? Because if you add all of that up, you may hold on to your house for 4 more years and need to put another $100,000 in it to get the same $350,000 or $375,000 that you hope to get in a strong market after any downturn that we see. So consider all those things. Phil, I can't thank you enough, man. It is always a pleasure jumping on here with you.
One thing I'd like to add to that before we go is when you're hiring a buyer broker or a listing broker, do your research. Don't just look and see the flashy. Don't look and watch them dance on TikTok. Look at their results. Look at their numbers. Look at how many properties they've sold. Look at their reviews. Don't just hire somebody. I never understand this, how people hire their agents. It's a friend of a friend. It's a this or that. We saw them doing this. They never check their criteria. They never see who they are. They never see what they do, right? You've been in business. You've been around this since 89. Construction, broker. I have a real estate school. I have a real estate brokerage, 25 years in this. Look at what people do. Look at their experience. Look at what they've been through and look what people say about them. Don't listen to what people say. Look at the facts. Just like when you're buying anything, you don't just take somebody's word for it because you like them. You have to have someone who's been through the troubles. We have troubles coming that we've never seen before. Even before. There's troubles coming because every indicator is showing it. No one wants to believe it. Find somebody that knows what they're doing and has experience and can get it done for you. That's what you need to do before you hire anybody.
It's great advice, Phil. We appreciate it.
Yep. You're welcome. Thank you. It's good seeing you, man.
All right, so what do you think? If you're a buyer looking in Florida, do you think you should wait? Drop your comments below. And really, I'd like to hear from the sellers too. Do you feel, like I said, that you're better off selling now, or should you just wait if you've been thinking about selling your home within the next 12 months? And if you like the video, you can let Phil and I know that you did by smashing that thumbs up. It actually helps the algorithms push this out to more people. And if you haven't subscribed to Sachs Realty's YouTube channel, well, why don't you consider doing so now? You can hit that alert bell. You'll know every time we upload content just like this. We're dedicated to keeping you informed on everything real estate. And if you know anybody that could benefit from hearing this video, please hit the share button below. See you next time. Sachs Realty, Maryland broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4514, equal housing opportunity.